In the final winter of World War II, Germany was already losing. The Eastern Front had collapsed. Soviet forces were moving fast through East Prussia. Cities were falling one by one. Millions of civilians were trapped between the front lines and the sea. Old men, women, children, wounded soldiers. They were not soldiers anymore, they were refugees. Germany launched a massive evacuation across the Baltic Sea. It was called Operation Hannibal. It became one of the largest sea evacuations in history. One ship stood out among all others, the Wilhelm Gustloff. Originally, it was not built for war. It was a cruise ship. A symbol of leisure, bright halls, wide decks, designed to carry holiday travelers. By January 1945, that same ship was packed beyond capacity. Official records said it could carry about 1,900 people. That night, it carried more than 10,000. No one knew the exact number. People were pushed on board in panic. Families were separated. Children were handed through crowds. The ship was never meant for this. Weather conditions were brutal. The Baltic Sea was frozen in parts. Temperatures were well below freezing. Ice covered the decks. Inside, the ship was chaos. There were no clear passenger lists, no clear safety plans, no proper lifeboat access for everyone. And yet, the biggest danger was not the cold. It was the sea itself. Several officers on board knew this. Soviet submarines were active in the Baltic. German Naval Command had already lost ships in the same waters. Warnings had been issued days earlier. The Gustloff was advised to sail quietly. No lights, maximum darkness, speed adjusted to avoid detection. But there was fear of collision. Other evacuation ships were moving in the same area. There was concern about mines, there was panic about control. At this point, leadership mattered more than ever. Captain Friedrich Petersen had to decide. He chose visibility over stealth. He ordered the navigation lights to remain on. From the outside, the ship became visible for miles, a bright outline in a dark, frozen sea. Some officers objected. They warned him again. Lights made them an easy target. The warning was clear. The sea was not safe. Darkness was protection. But the warning was not taken seriously. On the night of January 30th, 1945, the Wilhelm Gustloff moved slowly through the Baltic Sea. It was not escorted properly. German naval resources were stretched thin. Escort ships were scarce. Communication was poor. Inside the ship, people tried to sleep wherever they could. Corridors, staircases, storage rooms. Children cried quietly. Mothers held them close. Wounded soldiers lay on stretchers with little medical support. Above them, the lights remained on. Far beneath the surface, another crew was watching. The Soviet submarine S-13, commanded by Captain Alexander Marinesko, had been patrolling the area. Through the periscope, the sight was unmistakable. A large ship, fully illuminated, moving slowly. It was the kind of target submarines waited for. There was no confusion, no doubt. The submarine followed silently, positioning carefully, waiting for the right moment. At approximately 9 p.m., the attack began. 3 torpedoes were fired. They did not miss. The first hit the bow. The second struck near the swimming pool. The third hit the engine room. The ship shuddered. Lights went out. Panic exploded instantly. People rushed toward staircases that were already overcrowded. Some doors were frozen shut. Some lifeboats were impossible to reach. Cold seawater poured in fast. The temperature of the water was deadly. Anyone who fell in had minutes, sometimes seconds. The ship listed heavily. People slipped on icy decks. Screams filled the air. There was no organized evacuation. No time. Within less than an hour, the Wilhelm Gustloff was gone. More than 9,000 people died. Most were civilians. Children made up a large portion of the victims. It remains the deadliest maritime disaster in recorded history. Larger than the Titanic, but far less known. The captain survived. Some officers survived, most passengers did not. After the war, investigations confirmed what many already knew. The lights made the ship visible. The lack of escort made it vulnerable. The warnings had been valid, but they were ignored. The sinking of the Wilhelm Gustloff did not stop the war. It did not change borders. It did not alter military plans. And yet, it became one of the most tragic moments of the entire conflict. When the ship disappeared beneath the Baltic Sea, The world did not stop. The war continued. Battles raged on land. Cities fell. Millions more died in the final months of World War II. The Gustloff was quickly pushed into the background. For Germany, the country was collapsing. There was little space to mourn civilians lost at sea. The focus shifted to survival, surrender, and rebuilding. For the Soviet Union, the sinking was treated as a military victory. A large enemy vessel destroyed. A successful submarine operation. The people on board were rarely mentioned. This silence lasted for decades. Unlike the Titanic, there were no global memorials, no famous movies, no yearly ceremonies known to the public. Most people outside Europe never heard the name Wilhelm Gustloff. Yet the numbers were undeniable. More than 9,000 lives lost, thousands of them children, families who never reached safety, people who were fleeing a war they did not create. Historians later examined the disaster in detail. They reviewed naval logs, survivor testimonies, military records from both sides. One conclusion appeared again and again. The warnings were real. They were reasonable. They were based on known risks. Soviet submarines were active in the area. German ships had already been attacked in nearby waters. Standard naval practice demanded darkness during such crossings. The Gustloff ignored that practice. The ship sailed fully lit, slow, visible, unprotected. This did not make the attack illegal. The ship was carrying military personnel and equipment. Under wartime law, it was considered a valid target. But legality does not erase responsibility, the responsibility of command. Captain Friedrich Petersen faced impossible pressure. Thousands of lives depended on his choices. The sea was crowded, mines were a threat, panic was everywhere. His fear of collision was real. His concern about chaos was understandable. But leadership in war often means choosing between bad options. He chose visibility. That choice made the ship easier to control. It also made it easier to destroy. After the war, Petersen was not prosecuted. No formal trial followed. The chaos of the time buried accountability. But history does not forget decisions. It records them. The Wilhelm Gustloff stands as a reminder that war is not only fought with weapons. It is shaped by judgment, by timing, by whether warnings are heard or ignored. Many survivors spoke later in life. They remembered the lights. They remembered how calm things seemed at first. They remembered the sudden darkness when the torpedoes hit. Some said the ship felt safe. Too safe. That false sense of safety was deadly. In modern military training, the Gustloff is sometimes referenced quietly, not as a famous case, but as a lesson. Visibility can be danger. Comfort can be a trap. Ignoring advice can cost lives. The tragedy also raises a deeper question. Who is remembered in war? Battles are remembered. Generals are remembered. Victories are remembered. Refugees are often forgotten. The people on the Gustloff were not heroes. They were not symbols. They were ordinary. That is why their story matters. History is not only about strategy. It is about people caught inside decisions they never made. The warning that night was simple. Turn off the lights. Disappear into the darkness. Reduce risk. It was not dramatic. It did not sound heroic. It was practical, and it was ignored. The result was not instant. There was no warning sign, no second chance, just cold water, darkness, and silence. Today, the wreck of the Wilhelm Gustloff still lies on the seabed. It is considered a war grave. Protected by international agreement, divers do not disturb it. No recovery efforts are allowed. It remains where it sank. A quiet reminder beneath the water. History often teaches lessons through extremes, but sometimes the lesson is small. Listen when someone warns you, especially when the cost of ignoring them is irreversible. The story of the Wilhelm Gustloff is not about blame alone. It is about consequence. One decision, one ignored warning, thousands of lives, and a tragedy the world took far too long to remember.